This episode of the Ambitious Bookkeeper podcast is sponsored by the Power to Breakthrough Bootcamp by Workflow Queen. If you're a bookkeeper or accountant, finding yourself wanting to scale bigger, higher, better, and break through to the next level, then boy, do I have a surprise for you. I'm so excited to finally be announcing a brand new free bootcamp that is coming to you live from August 21st to August 25th, and it's called the Power to Breakthrough Bootcamp. This is going to be jam-packed with so much amazingness and so much value, free, might I add, over the 5-day period with none other than Alyssa Lang, the Workflow Queen herself. And during that time, she's going to be covering her 5 core pillars that she calls the Breakthrough Bookkeeper approach. Each day is going to be dedicated toward each one of these pillars, and you can expect that she'll be covering things like a powerful mindset, optimized offers, world-class systems, empowered company culture, and removable CEO. So if you're hitting a wall and feeling like you can't move forward, or you can't take on new clients because you don't have the right systems in place or the right team, or maybe you're not even really sure where to start with hiring, having the right mindset to really truly scale bigger, higher, better, and break through to that next level, then this is going to be the free bootcamp for you. You can go to workflowqueen.com/ambitious to sign up. You can also find the link in the show notes to this episode. Each day will be a live teaching session about an hour long, starting August 21st, going all the way to August 25th. That live teaching session will be at 12 p.m. Eastern every day. There will also be a live Q&A every single night at 5 p.m. Eastern for about an hour as well, with Alyssa Lang and her other breakthrough coach, Brooke Swan. If you've really been feeling stuck and overwhelmed and not sure where to start and how to get yourself leveled up, this is going to be the place you want to be. So just head on over to workflowqueen.com/ambitious and sign up today. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to support@workflowqueen.com. We hope to see you there. Hey, and welcome to the Ambitious Bookkeeper podcast. I'm Serena Shoup, CPA, a mom of 3, and I've been running a virtual bookkeeping business from my home since 2017. You are in the right place if you are a bookkeeper, accountant, or an accounting student, and you believe and know in your heart that your purpose is bigger than sitting in a cubicle. If you're ready to learn some actionable tips and strategies for starting and growing your accounting business, then I hope you stick around. Welcome back to the Ambitious Bookkeeper podcast. Today is another special strategy session on air. And today I have Becky Hesson, and we are going to dive into a single laser topic and kind of coach her and mentor her around the roadblocks she's having in her business and what she wants to achieve. So welcome, Becky. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Serena, for having me on the podcast.
Yeah, these are honestly, we get a lot of really good feedback from these episodes. I think it's really helpful for people to hear, one, real questions bookkeepers have, and hearing someone kind of get coached through it. So if you're listening, you can kind of take this and apply it however you can in your own business. And then number 2, giving people the opportunity to see what it's like working with a mentor or bouncing ideas off of someone else and how valuable it can be to have that in your corner. So before we get started, can you please introduce kind of where you're at in your business, the background of your business, how you ended up here, and then we can dive into our mentoring topic.
Sure. I'm Becky Hesson, and my company name is Anjudy 3 LLC, and I started my bookkeeping business in 2020. Wasn't really because of the pandemic, it just occurred that time. That's the timing of when it occurred. And my background is actually in technology and software applications. And so I decided to do the bookkeeping and accounting because I like Zero. Like Serena, I only use Zero as the bookkeeping, but I use some other tools as well, but only that for the accounting part of it. And I named my business after my 3 exchange students. I had 3 exchange students who lived with me their junior year in high school from Germany, Anja and Julia and Diana. That's how I came up with the crazy name. So
That is so cool. I love hearing about how businesses are named. And this is something, like, as a side note, if something that your clients and potential customers are interested in hearing as well too, and it offers a connection point. So I think I've seen you share about the background of the name of your business in your posts and stuff. And I think that's very, very smart.
I try.
So
I
yeah.
had another mentor who told me that if there was something I didn't like to do, which marketing is not my favorite to do, I like doing the managing of people, and I'm trying to figure out how to do that and make sure that the bookkeeping is done appropriately.
Awesome. Okay. So that's what we're talking about today, correct?
Correct. That's what I'd like
So,
to understand. Your
all
feedback
right.
and interest on that, input on that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, where I would start is getting an idea of what you currently have in place in this realm. So, if you want to give me a background of what your current process is and maybe identify the areas that you know are lacking and point those out, or I will probably be able to point them out as well. But yeah, let's start with what are you currently doing or having them do each month, and what's your
Right.
system?
So we use Kickoff with Asana. I signed up for that training, and we use Asana to help us keep track of the operations. And so we have the bookkeeping and accounting for each month. I have an account manager who is the client-facing person for all of our clients. We have about 30, and we also have another bookkeeper who helps to do some of the work. And then I have a virtual assistant as who works a few hours and a marketing person who works a few hours a week for me as well.
Okay. And back to you. So you said you have one bookkeeper and one account manager?
Yes.
Okay. And your account manager, what responsibilities do they have? Is it just the month end interacting with clients? Are they also doing some bookkeeping?
They're also doing some bookkeeping. They want to continue that. They like the problem solving of that.
Okay.
And one of the things that seems hard is to let go of work and have it be taken over by someone else in order to free up some of her time as well.
Mm-hmm. All right. So that is definitely sounds like a pain point
Yep.
because as the client base grows, that account manager is probably going to have to completely let go of bookkeeping. And so maybe this is where you can help solve this problem and let her or him keep a finger on the pulse and kind of keep their hands in some of the bookkeeping. My recommendation would be to move them to have their account manager role, but also manage the onboarding and establishing the process for the monthly bookkeeping. And then once the process is established, then they are to hand it over to a bookkeeper. Then their time is freed up for the reviewing and onboarding a new client.
Right.
Have you guys talked about that?
We have talked about that. It's been so that nothing is ready to be turned over yet. And I'm trying to help not overwhelm her and
Mm-hmm.
also ensure that the other bookkeepers feel like they are doing a valid piece of work.
Right. And are you doing like frequent one-on-ones with your account manager? Do you
Yes,
have like a rhythm? Okay.
yes, every week.
So I would probably give them a heads up of like on our next one-on-one, we're going to discuss a handoff plan. And so I need you to come to this meeting with some specifics. I need to know exactly where all these clients are at that you're onboarding that need to be handed off and where you're stuck so I can help you get unstuck and get it moving along. Also give them the assignment of writing out. I mean, when they do this exercise of having to show you like this is where it's stuck, it's going to illuminate either that they don't want to hand off this type of task, or I don't know, it's going to illuminate some things. So maybe that's where you have to leave it and kind of but their assignment is to bring to you, so you're not the one doing the work of figuring all of this out. This account manager likes problem solving, so this is a
Right,
great opportunity to solve a problem. And you need solutions. So your expectation of this account manager is to come to this meeting with current status of the clients we're onboarding, where you're stuck and why you cannot hand it off yet, and then come with some solutions to those points. What is your suggestion of what is the next step, so that they're bought into that process of handing it off.
Right.
And so what's going to happen is either they're going to be like, oh, okay, this is why it's stuck and this is the solution, so now we can go do that. Or they're going to come to you and say, this is why it's stuck, but I'm really having a hard time figuring out how to get it past that point. And so you're going to use that meeting for brainstorming, but you're still going to be like coaching that account manager to come up with the solution themselves by asking a lot of questions like, well, where is this at and why are you having a hard time handing it off? Is it that we need to establish a process? Is it that you haven't figured out the process for that client yet? What do we need to do to get you to that point? Do you need more time? Are you at capacity? It's going to open up all sorts of possibilities. So you're going to come to that meeting just asking a lot of questions,
right,
and hopefully driving that account manager to a point where they're the ones coming up with the next steps and solutions. And they have to be bought into it. Does that make sense?
Right.
That's how I would approach that. And I love that you're doing regular one-on-one meetings with your team. At a certain point, your account manager ideally is for you, a hands-off role. Like for me and my account manager, initially we had one-on-ones weekly as he was getting up to speed on all the clients. And then we dialed it back to bi-weekly. And now we pretty much just have one-on-ones like quarterly to just check in with each other. And ideally, that's the kind of position that your account manager is in. But also you have to establish like that real open door policy where people do feel like they can come to you anytime. But even like you're still checking in with them between meetings of saying, hey, I'm just checking in, making sure like, do you have anything that's holding you back? You want to discuss, blah, 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 like be that mentor and coach for them and be available even in between meetings. But yeah, ideally your account manager is at a level that they don't need as much guidance.
Right.
And they can kind of run with things. And then the other thing too that I would kind of tackle in these one-on-ones, maybe not the next one, or maybe it becomes a conversation in that one-on-one meeting, is what do they actually want to be doing? Do they have the aspiration to manage the bookkeeper, like a team of bookkeepers? Like, where do they want to be?
This
Because
person doesn't want to manage. And so perhaps I'm asking for them to do something that isn't what they want.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Hey, ambitious bookkeepers, are you tired of tangled client onboarding processes and drowning in paperwork? Maybe you're winging it on every client you onboard with the sloppy process, lots of back and forth, time-consuming, inconsistent client experiences. Well, I've got some exciting news for you. Introducing Dubsado Decoded, the ultimate self-paced course for bookkeepers and accountants that's here to rescue you from the chaos to bring you the golden ticket to a seamless onboarding experience. Picture this: custom forms, automated workflows, dazzling client portals, all at your fingertips. And the best part is you don't need to be a tech wizard to make it happen. Dubsado Decoded will guide you step by step through everything you need to know. Imagine feeling confident that each client is getting a consistent experience. You aren't having to think about what you need from clients, doing all the follow-up, appearing sloppy or going back and forth, and you can focus on serving your existing clients or marketing while your new clients are self-onboarding. Now, here's the real kicker. Right now, you can hop on the summer sale bandwagon and grab this game-changing course at 20% off. Yep, you heard me right. Enroll during the month of July and lock in our summer sale price on any version of the course or add-ons if you already have the course and need any additional workflow setup. The sale ends July 31st. Trust me, you don't want to miss this opportunity to revolutionize and automate the way that you onboard clients. So whether you're just starting out or a seasoned pro looking to uplevel your client experience, Dubsado Decoded has your back. Say goodbye to confusion and hello to a streamlined, stress-free onboarding process with Dubsado. I've been using Dubsado since nearly the beginning of my business and have been working with Kendra, who I've partnered with on this program for years as we've fine-tuned the setup process just for bookkeepers. This is the perfect opportunity to have her Dubsado expertise with my same setup at a fraction of the price it would be to have her set it up for you. Plus, you'll come away with a deep understanding and knowledge of how Dubsado functions, so you can feel confident that you're using it correctly. This is a very powerful system once you know how to use it. Not only will you get 20% off any version of the course or workflow add-ons, you'll get access to a handful of bonuses curated by me to help you land clients, stay organized with client work, and savings if you join my other programs after this. So head over to dubsatodecoded.com for all the details. The link is also in the show notes. Yeah, and that's what's so important about these one-on-ones is it probably needs more than your account manager should as far as the one-on-ones. However, like your account manager, if we're structuring it as a process management, it is good that she's checking in with you weekly and giving you status updates because she's managing that process. And
I think it makes her feel better too.
Yeah.
I think I need to do that. Do you think it's worthwhile to have her review the processes with me?
As in, like, you guys sit down and say, okay, let's look at the process together from an overview and talk about each step and assess whether this is something we should be doing. Does it need to be changed? Is that what you're saying?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. That would probably be.
It might help her too.
Yeah. And also opens up the conversation because I don't know how much you've established this as a team culture of looking at things with a fresh eye every once in a while and giving people the autonomy to say, hey, this process isn't working and I would like to change it. Like if you create that culture of everyone automatically looks at things with a critical eye and is like constantly like, how can we make this process better? Giving people that leeway to like take that upon themselves. That's a culture that is really important that's the culture I have at my firm. And I talk about that during the interview process of like, we love problem solvers. I don't ever want to hear that, well, this is how we've been doing it, so we should just keep doing it. Those words aren't allowed.
Right.
We always need to be reevaluating, like, is this the best way for us, for our clients? Because sometimes there is that process where it's not the best for us, but it's the best for our clients in providing the level of service we want to provide them. So you have to compromise. That's okay too. Like, we don't love this process, but right now this is what works the best for this client or whatever. And like, you have the opportunity to have those discussions on a case-by-case basis as well. But yeah, creating and establishing that culture of like, always look at the process to see if like, is it working for us still? Like, is this the most efficient way we can do this with the tools that we now have available to us? And making sure people know that and rewarding that and recognizing it when people do that is really important for keeping that culture going. So for instance, we have, we use Asana as well. We also use Notion, and I have the two businesses. I have the firm and I have this one, the Ambitious Bookkeeper. And for the most part now, we have all of our project management for the Ambitious Bookkeeper in Notion instead of Asana. So they're separate now. And that is all the doing of the team saying, hey, I think there's a better way to handle the Ambitious Bookkeeper projects in Notion because it's a different business model. And the way we do the launches and all of that, it's going to keep everything in one place and it's just going to be better. And that's the team. The team decided that because we have that culture of always looking at things with the critical eye and thinking like, is this the best way to be doing things? Is there a cleaner way? Is there a faster way, more efficient way? And then like it saves the company money as well. And then so giving them the autonomy to make those decisions and backing off as the firm owner, which I believe you're probably pretty good at since you have never been the one to do all the work.
Nope.
It's easier for you to look at things like that from the bird's eye of like, if this is what works for you, make it happen.
Right.
And then figuring out a way to reward them and recognize them. For instance, you could, if it's something that they change the process to make things more efficient, can you give them a spot bonus? Like, you saved us this much money, so I'm going to bonus you this much because we're going to save this much money in software fees for this year. Or as a group, you guys all collaborated on this and made this happen without me suggesting it. And I just really like just even verbal recognition in front of everyone. Like, you guys are amazing. I'm going to send you all a DoorDash gift card or whatever. Right? Like little things like that to build the culture and recognition. Most of the time people just truly want recognition. A lot of times it's not even about the money.
No, I agree. I agree.
What else is there that you need support on regarding what the specific question you asked actually in the intake form was ensuring bookkeepers and account managers are doing the same thing each month? Is there an area in your process that you need specifics on?
I feel like in some cases, because we haven't heard back from the information to do the reconciliation, we aren't doing the reports. And I want
Mm,
us to do the reports,
yeah.
regardless of whether they're correct,
Yeah.
in quotes, or not.
Yeah. So,
Because I think that the account manager and the bookkeeper want them to be correct, which is
correct.
good, and I
Yeah.
like that. But, so I'm sort of making them do something against the grain for them.
Yeah, that is definitely part of that discussion on the team meeting of like, I know this is going to be difficult for you all because as bookkeepers, we want everything to be perfect and accurate, tied out to the penny before we send things off as a quote unquote finished product. However, that's not possible in all instances. So you have to separate yourself from that and say, okay, what the actual deliverable for this client is financial statements by the 15th. And if we're unable to do whatever your deadline is, if we're unable to do that because the client hasn't given us information, then we're still going to send our deliverables with that asterisk and the caveat of and disclaimer of these are your financials, but XYZ was never answered. So these two accounts are not accurate. If you want a more accurate number and you want to be able to really make business decisions, we need to hear back from you in a more timely manner. And then you get to decide how long you want to let that go.
Right. Sort of train the clients as well.
Yeah. And so it could be an issue too of how many times have we followed up? Maybe they've only asked the question once and then they wait again until next month. And then it's like maybe the client actually needs more reminders. So then figuring out, okay, team, I'm going to task you with, okay, what's the best system for continually sending reminders? If we don't have it in place, one of you has to research what softwares can do this for us without us being the one chasing things. And that ultimately is why we moved to Zero Ask, because it sends the reminders to the client. So wherever you can automate things like that.
And you
And
use Zero Ask instead of something like Content Snare?
oh, you can use Content Snare. Yeah. But yeah, that's our something like that. Content Snare, Keeper, Zero
And
Ask. But
Content
putting
Snare
it,
felt like it provided a listing for us of what had been accomplished.
is that what you're currently working with?
Well, that's what I just bought it, so we're trying
Okay,
to figure out and include it in the process.
good. So that's something that you could hand over to your account manager if she has the bandwidth. If she doesn't, then I'm guessing you're the one that's implementing that process.
Yeah, sort of. I bought it, but I'm basically pushing people to use it, basically. And so
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily defining the right process, but
Hmm.
but
Yeah, you
I'm
need your
saying,
team to help you develop that process for
yeah,
sure. So that's something that you becoming the champion of the project where you're getting everyone to buy in and say, this is ultimately going to help you guys move things along the process faster. You're not going to feel like, you know, you can't move on because you haven't gotten things back from the client. Yeah, like
right,
ultimately it's going to help them. But I think you still also need to establish that, okay, everyone, if you
right,
haven't gotten it back by the 5th, we're still going to move forward. And the account manager is going to remind the client when they get their financial statements that they're not accurate.
yeah. And
And that'll help a lot. Once we established that process, the team was so relieved because they're like, now I feel like I can move forward. I
right,
didn't feel like I could move forward yet because I didn't know I was allowed to.
right,
But we all gave ourselves that freedom by establishing this process that I know it's not perfect, but that's okay. It's just we drew a line in the sand and we're moving forward, and everyone feels really good about that. So that's going to
right.
be a game changer, I think.
I think so too, if we can really get people to do it.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by the same thing every month. So,
Okay. Yeah. So one of the things that we did in Asana is, you know, how each part of the process is kind of grouped. So
Yep.
there's like the information gathering process or section. At least this is how I have my Asana set up. I don't know if you do too. Are you in BBA?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. So you have this process if you want to print it out or import it into Asana just to see what it looks like. There's one section, the first section of the accounting project for the monthly accounting project for each client is information gathering. And so then underneath that is the task list of, pulling bank statements or pulling any other reports that we need to be able to do the work, Shopify reports, blah, 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 blah. And that can be your VA, to be honest, doesn't need to
Yep.
be one of the bookkeepers.
Yep.
And
I'm
then,
trying to implement that kind of thing too. I have a great VA who I'm trying to get her to also document and help create the processes that are being created by the account manager, sort of follow her around and document it.
yeah, very good. There's that first section of the process, information gathering. And then the
Right.
second section is the bookkeeper section and all the bookkeeper's tasks of, reconciling the bank account, categorizing the stuff, doing the hub doc, all those things. I'm not saying them in order.
Right.
But you get the gist. And then at the last task of that is the month end handoff to the account manager. And it's like another checklist for the bookkeeper to look at, like, okay, did I do all this? Did I do all that? Yes, yes, yes. And like basically giving a status update to the account manager of like everything's done except we never received XYZ from the clients. So I put it all in suspense. So please remind them when you send their financials. And so then the third section in the month end process is the account manager's tasks of the review. So the review process of reviewed the balance sheet, reviewed the income statement, did a flux analysis, basically looking at things month over month, pulling out the things that look different and drilling into them and figuring out, is this accurate or is something miscoded? So that's the review process. And then if everything's great, then the account manager runs reports, sends them to the client, finishes the end of month project. Now we've completed that client's work for the month, even if the client never got back to us on suspense.
Right.
If there's something in the bookkeeping review process the account manager finds during that flux analysis of, oh, this was miscoded, the process is for him to actually send it back to the bookkeeper in Slack message, because we're all virtual. Hey,
we use Teams, but essentially it's like Slack.
Same thing, like going back into communicate with the team. Hey, this was coded to the wrong account. Please move, giving them a checklist of things they need to correct.
Right.
And then, but we've built in the timeline so that there's plenty of time to do this before we're supposed to actually be giving the financials to the client. And so then the bookkeeper makes the corrections, tags the account manager in Slack. Okay, they're ready to rerun the reports and send to the client. Like, I fixed all the mistakes. So that's essentially the process. Yeah. So you have all of that in BBA, or if you're a listener and you're in Elevate, it's also in Elevate. And Elevate really dives into that analysis process. So you can actually put your account manager through that program. I would recommend sending your account manager through the Elevate first module of financial statement analysis, at least, maybe even the whole entire program.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you allow me to share it too.
Yeah. And please give me feedback if there's anything that your account manager, or have them ask the question in the comment section too. So I know if there's gaps in what I'm saying and there's a disconnect for people to understand, I would love to know, because I want to make sure that that program can serve as a training tool for your team.
Right. I think that it's been great. We use the Kickoff with Asana, and I am a member of, what's that? Breakthrough.
Oh, wonderful. You're also in Breakthrough? Okay.
Yeah,
So
I'm in all of them.
Good. Breakthrough has the end of month handoff documents that you're going to want to start using.
Okay. And when I talk about handing it off and whatever, the account manager acts like, well, I have to do it again then. And it's like, no.
You're reviewing it for accuracy, but if it's not accurate, your responsibility is to the bookkeeper so that the bookkeeper can learn how to do their job better.
Right.
And can make those corrections. And then next month, you won't have those same corrections. You won't have those issues to continue to fix. The longer you perpetuate just fixing the errors yourself, they're never going to learn.
Right.
You're always going to be fixing those errors every single month. Even if you go back and say to the bookkeeper, hey, I changed this, that, and the other thing, I fixed this, the bookkeeper is not going to remember, because she didn't actually make those corrections. So you're going to continue to be fixing those same things every month, and you're going to get frustrated and resentful.
Right. And I don't want
So,
that.
no. Okay. Do you feel like you have some actionable steps to take now with your account manager?
Yes, I think so. I think
Okay.
that, like I said, the terminology of process management versus people management
Yeah.
needs to be more focus put on that, and that will help.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being willing to share your roadblocks on air and get coached on air. I really appreciate it. And I think this is going to be a really, really popular episode. People are going to love it because there's
Great,
so much in here that we talked about
great.
that
I
everyone
listen to
needs to
your
hear.
podcast a lot, so.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Becky. And we'll talk to you soon.
I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Great. Thank you to everyone who helps make this podcast possible. Content and interviews are produced by me, Serena Shu. Our intro and outro music is written and performed by my brother, Ian Gilliam. Editing is also by Ian using his awesome sound engineering skills along with Descript software. Hosting and publishing is by Buzzsprout. And you can check out the show notes for links to all of these amazing resources and resources mentioned in the episode.
Be ambitious.
Hey, guess what? I am doing a giveaway for a free XeroCon ticket. So if you're a bookkeeper, an accountant, and you use Xero, and you've been wanting to come to XeroCon, it is in Nashville this year from August 14th to the 15th. And I have a ticket to give away to one lucky viewer. So all you have to do is go to the Apple Podcast link, rate and review the podcast, and then take a screenshot of it and email it to support@ambitiousbookkeeper.com to show us that you, in fact, reviewed the podcast. And while you're here, just give us a follow so that you don't miss out on anything in the future. And we are going to be doing the drawing live here on YouTube next Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific. So don't miss out, especially if you are near the Nashville area. I would love to see you at XeroCon, and you have a chance to win a free ticket. So make sure you follow the instructions, and hopefully I get to see you there.